We have an AI revolution coming. It's the next wheel. It's the next internet. It's the next industrial revolution. And if we want to compete with China, we have to be ready. And I don't know about you, but I'm always rooting for America, and I want to win the AI battle, right? Because that's what we have to do to create new jobs and be the leader of innovation, because that's who we are. It's who we've always been. America leads, America innovates. One of the ways that we have to do that is through AI, and that takes an incredible amount of energy. And so they're putting up these centers, data centers, all across the country, and it's going to be a strain on our electrical grid, right? And Americans just in their own homes are feeling that strain of higher energy prices. Well, one thing that we can do to help lower those costs and usher in the AI revolution is to pass what's called permitting reform. And that sounds like really technical, but basically all we need to say is there's a lot of red tape.
Yep.
And there's a lot of bureaucrats.
Americans are capable of achieving extraordinary things when they have the freedom and opportunity to do so. This is American Potential.
Hey everyone, and welcome to the American Potential Podcast. I'm your host, David Fromm. So we're here in our last few episodes of 2025, and we've been talking to leaders at Americans for Prosperity, Libre, Concerned Veterans for America, our podcast team, looking back on this past year and looking forward to the next. And so I'm so happy to be joined by my good friend and colleague, Kent Strang, who's a managing director at Americans for Prosperity, to talk about this past year, which was very successful, and all of our exciting plans for next year. So Kent, welcome again.
It's great to be back. Thanks, David. Merry Christmas. Hope you had a great year.
Yeah, man. No, we're doing well. You know, this big year of change for me because I've started hosting this podcast and had a lot to learn. Fortunately, we have an awesome team, and it's been a great experience for me. And I know like your role has even kind of grown and changed too, and we can get to that later too. But I mean, what stands out to you? I'm guessing it's a working family's tax cut. Like, what stands out to you about this past year?
Yeah, I think we've got to start there, right? Going into 2025, we knew that the fiscal cliff was coming, and that if we didn't act and Congress didn't act, we would be saddled with the biggest tax hike in American history if President Trump's 2017 tax cuts expired. And so AFP sprung into action, and we did what we do great. We unleashed our grassroots. We had a great marketing campaign. We had our surrogates out talking about the impact of the working families tax cuts, or what a lot of people call the one big beautiful bill. Mm-hmm. And that got passed, and it's around Independence Day.
Yeah.
And it's going to make a huge impact for American families. And that's really what it's about. So that it's going to extend President Trump's 2017 tax cuts and extend the tax rates for individuals, extend the tax rates for corporate. It's going to double the standard deduction. It's going to make it so small businesses can reinvest in their company because they're going to be able to depreciate 100% of their expenses. And so they can invest, they can thrive, they can grow, they can hire new people. And so there's just so many good benefits and just on the tax side. But then you go into elements like it helps secure a border, which was a disaster under Joe Biden, and helped more agents be able to hire, more technology for the border. And so we have things like that. And then you get into, well, what did it cut? It cut over $1.5 trillion of wasteful spending. It also expanded health savings accounts, which we absolutely love because you're putting healthcare in the palms of human beings and not big insurance companies or bureaucrats. And so there's so much to come back from on the one big beautiful bill. But I also think it's important to talk about AFP's impact in that as well. Yeah. We knocked on over 1 million doors. We made 800,000 phone calls to connect voters with their lawmakers, had over 1,000 events for both AFP, Libre, and CVA. And so it's just a really monumental effort, and happy to be a part of a huge win that are going to help Americans. And they're estimating now that potentially Americans can see some of the biggest tax refunds ever when they get into tax season next year, which is going to be great.
Yeah, that'd be welcome. Man, I think that it was really cool to see that when, you know, Congress changed, new administration comes in, that they were able to come together and address, at least make really great progress on a number of different issues in the working family tax cut and the one big beautiful bill, whatever we call it. And it was on a lot of different fronts. And I was really proud of Americans for Prosperity, how we kind of saw that moment and jumped in on it and did what we do best with, you know, mobilizing our grassroots, you know, taking the various individual voices, aggregating them to try to really be impactful with members of Congress. I was talking to during this fall, we did a quick interview with House Appropriations Chairman Tom Cole, who's been around DC for, as a member of Congress for decades. Obviously, chairman of the Appropriations Committee is a really powerful job.
Yes, it is.
And so we were talking, doing an interview, and he said to me, David, unprompted, David, if I was in my district office right now, you'd see a big card behind me, a big giant card that's signed by AFP activists thanking me for standing up on the One Big Beautiful Bill. And he went on for 45 seconds about how important AFP's efforts by mobilizing activists in the district, by lobbying directly in DC in the halls of Congress, and then some media campaigns and all that approach was so influential in helping those members pass that important bill that the president had championed. And it was just cool to hear, here you said sometimes you wonder, I hope our work, our efforts are really productive, and to have a leading member of Congress say, oh no, actually you guys did a lot of stuff was pretty gratifying. So I was happy to hear that.
Yeah, I mean, grassroots is our superpower, right? And so we're always going to be in those districts, talking to lawmakers, encouraging them to do the right thing, and then holding those accountable who don't. But then you add that to our government affairs team that's lobbying, our policy team that's looking at these proposals, our marketing team, our communications team to be able to go out and talk about that message and deliver it to people, where they get their news. And so I think it's an integrated effort. I think it was a really big effort that every single one of AFP's teams and capabilities really stood up for. And I think it's important to think about where do we come from? And you don't want to spend too much time thinking about the past, but before this happened, we're talking about Bidenomics, where they spent $5.5 trillion in new spending. It led to 40-year high inflation, a cost of living crisis. We had $5 gasoline, energy prices went up 20%, home heating oil went up 69%, and it just crushed people. And now to change administrations, change Congress, come back and focus in on how can we actually help people? Well, we can lower their taxes and have less of a tax burden for them was absolutely the right way to go. And I think that's so important to end of one era that was a failure and into an era where you can bring, real prosperity to people by not taxing them so much.
Yeah, I think, I don't know if everybody even had fully grasped that this was going to be the largest tax hike in American history. Right. But I remember doing one interview with a business owner named Tim in rural Ohio, and he builds towers. And he's the largest employer in his area of Ohio, employs hundreds of people. And he said that because of the 2017 tax cuts, he gave all of his employees a 30% raise. I think the left is no, that person's, like a unicorn. That doesn't really exist. No, that really happened. He told me about it. And then he also bought new equipment and expanded his business, doing what we want them to, so he can even be the, employing more people in his part of Ohio. And then if this didn't go through, it would have totally impacted his employees. He would have had to lay people off. He would have had to, not keep expanding his business. And yet, since it did, he can keep growing his business, employing people, and really helping people achieve their American dream and him achieving his American dream. So it was just nice. A lot of times it's nice to get the win, but that's not why we're in this. We're in it to help people achieve their American dream, make people's lives better, because either government's getting out of the way, or we're helping people be successful, remove obstacles. So it was fun to hear stories like that. I've always loved that of the podcast.
And I think that's so unique to us too, where having real people all across the country who can talk to those business owners, talk about the impact they make, and be able to share their story. I know that we shared a lot of those stories directly with lawmakers, and enable people to share their story on how these tax cuts, if they go away, will negatively impact their business and their lives and their bottom line, certainly, and then how passing it will help them do that. And I think storytelling is such a big part. And I think that's what's important for conservatives and Republicans to do now, is to continue to tell that part of the story. Democrats are trying to reclaim this affordability mantle, and it's like, wait, you guys caused the problem. You spent all the money.
Well, look, I mean, it's like they're all trying to pull a Joe Biden and forget the last 4 years.
That's right.
Let's be real. I mean, it was the last, during the Biden administration, I mean, everyone saw inflation and affordability just go through the roof. And, I think the Trump administration and Congress are trying to turn that back. It takes a little time, but I mean, they're, hopefully with some success, but The disingenuous kind of rhetoric there is really amazing.
Yeah, Chuck Schumer is saying, oh, we're going to be laser focused in the midterms on affordability. And it's like, well, you ought to be laser focused on how your policies made people spend more, have to pay $11,400 more just to maintain their lifestyle. That was the failed policies of your administration, where, we're looking at unleashing American energy, tax cuts. These are the things that make economies grow.
Well, speaking of failed policies in the past administration, some of us went down to the border. A few weeks ago, we were with Chief Chris Clem, who's the former section chief for the Border Patrol down in Yuma, Arizona, and we recorded some episodes there. Hopefully, all of you go watch those. What a stark example of a lack of just failed leadership, like an unwillingness to secure our border. And it was overwhelming our nation, really, but especially a town like Yuma, a border town where thousands of people are coming in a day, just destroying kind of the economy there. And these are people with compassion trying to help it work. And then, and then the Trump administration comes in, is serious about enforcing the laws and securing the border. And they have like maybe a dozen people they pick up a day at most, whereas they had 1,100 a day.
Yeah, I remember the lines. I went on the border trip a couple years ago during the Biden administration. We went to McAllen, Texas, and you felt the failed policies, and you could see them. We could see the spotters in the trees trying to find out. We heard all the stories from the local border patrol, hearing about how people cross and how folks are trying to bring things into our country that should not be in our country. People, drugs, all those sort of things. It was just
exploited children left and right.
Just an unmitigated disaster. And so when you were on the border trip in Yuma, what did you see? Did you see that it's secure and that things are different? And what did Chief Clem have to tell you?
Oh yeah, I mean, he was sector chief when there was just like open border basically, and the juxtaposition was striking. We talked to and interviewed for the podcast the mayor of Yuma, and then also a farmer who has a farm that goes, it's all farm fields right up against the border there, and the impact that it was having on their community, the negative impact, was really startling. So I really was, it was just interesting to hear that. I didn't quite grasp the depth of it. And, but then to see like how just a change in leadership made such a drastic difference. And now, these are people who rely on legal immigration. Right. They have people who wake up in Mexico, go to the border, come over legally, work for them, and after the shift go back and sleep in their bed in Mexico. And they've been doing that for generations. And it's a wonderful relationship. It makes the town's economy go. They grow like 90% of the leafy greens for all of American Canada during the winter years. Or the winter months.
Wild.
Yeah. If you're eating salad right now, it's from the Yuma area. It's unbelievable. So, and they need the manpower to do that. They need tens of thousands of workers. But the problem is that just everything had collapsed so much as people were coming through and it's straining the town, all the services, traipsing through the fields, which is ruining them. And all. So it was really, to see that change was really stark. And then, to have the One Big Beautiful Bill provide funding, I think the Yuma sector there will have $200 million to keep improving the wall they have and surveillance. You see now you're there, there's, this giant, the wall, and then different, there's aircraft flying around, there's cameras and all that. And look, we want a secure border, because we want to have legal immigration, but if we can't control who's coming across our border, it makes legal immigration hard too.
That's right.
So I was pretty appreciative of that part being in the One Big Beautiful Bill, and kind of seeing that in person was a really cool experience, very informative and impactful. So we've also cared a lot about energy, and we've talked a lot about energy, especially the latter half of this year. Maybe talk to us a little bit about that.
Sure. We have an AI revolution coming. Mm-hmm. It's the next wheel. It's the next internet. It's the next industrial revolution. And if we want to compete with China, we have to be ready. And I don't know about you, but I'm always rooting for America, and I want to win the AI battle, right? Because that's what we have to do to create new jobs and be the leader of innovation, because that's who we are. It's who we've always been. America leads, America innovates. One of the ways that we have to do that is through AI, and that takes an incredible amount of energy. And so they're putting up these data centers all across the country, and it's going to be a strain on our electrical grid, right? And Americans just in their own homes are feeling that strain of higher energy prices. Well, one thing that we can do to help lower those costs and usher in the AI revolution is to pass what's called permitting reform. And that sounds like really technical, but basically all we need to say is there's a lot of red tape.
Yep.
And there's a lot of bureaucrats who want to slow projects down and a lot of lawyers that want to slow projects down. And so there are a number of bills that Congress is looking at right now. They've passed a couple just this week, and they're looking at passing more this week on how to stop that, how to cut back the red tape that's unnecessary, that still keeps people safe, how to put direct timelines in, because it shouldn't take longer to get a permit than it does to build the thing that you're trying to get the permit for. And that's what's happening right now. And part of that is, there's a push for us to go talk to Congress. And this is an American issue. This should never, ever be a left-right issue. We need an all-of-the-above energy approach, and we need to unleash American energy. And so this should be one of these where Americans come together, and Democrats, Republicans come together and pass this. And so we have to unleash that. And we went out and we toured facilities that produce energy. And whether it's coal mines or nuclear facilities or where they produce LNG, liquid natural gas. And so we went out on the road and we showed Americans like, this is what it looks like. And we talked to the workers that work on these places that produce American energy about the barriers they have. I had an opportunity to go to Louisiana and we went inside the Gulf and we toured some barges. And it was really amazing what it looked like. And we had a boat captain with us. And one of the facilities that we visited and we rolled up on was just empty, overgrown, nothing's happening there, it's shut down. And I swear that we did not prompt this, but we asked the boat captain, hey, what's up with this facility? Why is it shut down? He goes, oh, it couldn't get the permits, just died. And he's like, and eventually like, so it just died? He's like, yeah, the government killed it.
Wow.
Because they couldn't get the permitting for it. And it's like, well, how many jobs does that facility produce? How much energy does that facility produce? And so if we want more affordable energy, which everybody does, if we want to lead that AI revolution, we're going to have to make sure that we can get the permits that we need. We're going to cut back the red tape, unleash American innovation, because that revolution's coming and we need to be ready for it and we need to lead on it.
And we're fortunate that we actually have the resources.
Oh yeah,
we in abundance. So it's a matter of permitting them and extracting them and all. And we brought the podcast over to Bozeman, Montana for the governor's energy summit, and talked to Governor Gianforte, a few other governors, and members of Congress. But one of them was House Natural Resources Committee Chairman Bruce Westerman, and it was really. The guy, he's just a humble, common sense guy. And him saying like, this is just common sense. His bill is the SPEED Act, which we've been very supportive of. It's a Permitting Reform Act. And he was just like, look, this doesn't make sense. Like, we just need to get the government out of the way. We still wanted to be safe and all that. I mean, he's a naturalist, but it just doesn't make sense the way that we're doing it now. We need to just get on the same page and really be able to unleash this energy, because it's what's necessary. It's a national security issue. And it's, I don't know that everybody is really in the American population really understood that what we're doing as a society, our habits of how we use data, so frequently just is, we need the energy to be able to do that. And it's almost at a crisis in some places. So again, fortunately, we have the energy to go get, we just need to go do it now and get out of the way so we can do it.
The government can roll back that red tape. Yeah, we're going to maybe see the SPEED Act this week. Hopefully that passes the House, and then we'll see if the Senate picks it up this year. There aren't many days left to do much this year, but hopefully that stuff carries over and we get real reforms. So we're going to have to do it.
So regulatory reform has kind of been a theme for a lot of what we've worked on. At certainly the federal level, we're just talking about that with permitting, but at the state level, some of our best, I'd say victories and momentum that we've seen is around the RAINS Act, which we've done a number of episodes on, that would really, help cut red tape and really restore the legislative body's role and responsibility for, regulation or not regulating something, really, because so many times you have bureaucrats and folks who just like to kind of gum it up, or they get their little piece, and we want the legislature to play their role. So, we saw a lot of states, I think a half dozen, pass the RAINS Act, and we have a lot of other ones that are teed up this year, which we're really excited about. Some just great momentum across the country where, it's great when I think AFP always works best when you can have some states pass something and then the other states are looking around like, oh, that I want to be competitive with that state, or I see us as being better and more free than that state, or we want to be a better place to do business in that state. So we're going to go out and try to pass it too. And you kind of get that cascade effect, which has been fun to see with Reigns so far.
I think it would be awesome to have Reigns sweep all the states, to your point, like create that snowball effect where everybody's doing it. And then where do state legislators and state senators end up? They end up in the halls of Congress a lot of times, right? And let's take those great policies that we pass in the states and we can apply them to the federal level too and pass the federal level Reigns Act. And that's the sort of red tape that we need to be cutting, not just in the states, but on the federal level. So hopefully that snowball continues in 2026. And I think we saw a similar snowball on something that's close to your heart, is on educational choice and educational freedom. Of we just continue to see more and more states offer more freedom in that department. And I know we had a bunch of big wins in ed choice this year. I think that's so fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, we saw the biggest expansion of education freedom in Texas. I mean, Texas is such a behemoth of a state, so them passing education savings accounts was a really big deal. But he also did it in Tennessee, saw it in Idaho, Wyoming. Those are just some great places. And then other incremental kind of expansions, which we kind of want to keep getting to. So, it's a big deal when a state like has a certain cap and then we remove that cap. Or, there's a certain dollar amount and you move that up. It's more and more kids who, have a chance at a better education, that their families can decide what's the best education choice for that child, which is, our point of view is, that's the way that it should be. We also had some really good, the left has, has been on their heels, I think, when it comes to education freedom. But there are some places where they tried to make a push to restrict it. Our home state of Illinois tried to restrict homeschool freedom. And
they tried to make it illegal to homeschool.
No, they didn't try to make it illegal. What they tried to do, because Illinois, you would never imagine, Illinois is one of the freest states to homeschool in, which I don't know that, but it's actually because of a really dynamic homeschool community in the state. I happen to be a homeschool dad, and what happened is some Democratic legislators came forward and said, oh, there's some danger here. We need to, license it more or have people register. But the problem was, if you didn't register your kid, you didn't file this piece of paper with the principal, you could be brought up on very serious charges, the parent. So if you're a single mom, who's trying to keep things going and you're homeschooling and then you didn't file this thing, you'd be arrested. And so we just thought that was so unreasonable. And there were other registrations.
So you need government's permission to homeschool your kid? That's what it was?
Right.
That's ridiculous.
Well, and so, but I will tell you, the homeschool community, the folks like the HSLDA, AFP, homeschool community in Illinois, just mobilized and went nuts in a great way, just worked together and beat back this attempt to kind of curtail education freedom. And so we're going to always keep fighting that at any place where they're trying to curtail education freedom is the wrong way to go. And then we're going to keep marching on, trying to give more and more kids, more and more family, that kind of freedom to educate how they want.
I think that story is awesome, where unique people see a problem and they come together and they say, this is ridiculous. And they stop it. And I think that as we come into 2026 and we're going to celebrate 250 years of America, I think that that's awesome, because that's who we are at our core. We saw a problem, we got together, we mobilized, and we changed it. And I think it's always so important that, I think we look at our founders as these mythical human beings who did something, and they did. I don't want to take anything away from our amazing founders, because was amazing. But that still exists in American DNA, that there can be a problem, you can unite with others, you can fight back, and you can solve that problem. And so I think sometimes we maybe feel defeatist that, well, I don't know. I mean, I go vote, but I don't know if I can make a difference. And so there's still plenty of opportunities in this world and in this country to bring people together, stand up for what's right, put government back in its place. Mm-hmm. So I think it's always good as we get to 250 here next month. It's a good opportunity for us to remember that.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I'm super excited for the opportunity of the 250th anniversary of America. One of the coolest things is it's just fun to celebrate who America is and the founding principles that undergird it. But it's such a great way to come together and remind ourselves that we're all Americans. I was talking to Sandra, Sandra Benitez, who runs Libre, and we were talking about how, even like, in the Hispanic community and the Anglo community, the African American community and the Asian community, all the different, ethnic communities that we have, but like we're the melting pot. And we have always believed all these people are Americans, and like we're bound together by these principles that were that undergird our country and that we were founded on, and that we still put into practice. And so I really appreciate the opportunity for this podcast and as an organization for us to talk about, what was that one small step that individual took to get involved in their community, to take that action, to change their community, to change their state, change their nation. And, and when we aggregate all those things, we get a better society. People can really pursue their American dream, no matter who they are. And no matter where they came. I mean, I was, there's my relatives came here in like the 1910s, from Norway. And, but I'm an American. And same with, the guy who I was talking to another person that, their relatives came here from Spain in the 1600s. And, but we're all Americans because we believe in, what the promise of America and what those founders are. So to be able to unite together and focus on those principles and how we put those into action is going to be a pretty cool thing this next year, I think.
Can't wait. I love it.
Yeah, we're going to have a lot of fun too. I have a feeling that the Kent Strang band might make an appearance at some events.
Maybe we'll see. We can't break news today, but maybe.
Well, look, I mean, it's been cool. We talked at the beginning, like a little bit of transformation this year and how things have changed for me hosting this podcast. But you're one of the faces of AFP, one of the prominent faces of AFP, for good or bad.
But for bad, yeah, not a good thing.
But if people are out there, watching TV stations and radio and all that, like you're out there, has it been fun getting out there and spreading the gospel?
It's different. It's different. I've always been this better than anybody because we worked together for so long in Illinois. I've always been a grassroots guy and an organizer and behind the scenes and trying to get people together to change our country that way. And so, I've done a little bit of media over the years, but in the last 6 months or so, I've been thrown out doing a lot more television, doing a lot more media appearances, so to speak. And it's a work in progress. We're working on it. But I think it's fun to connect people to what we do and how we make a difference and try to bring things back. Like, we got a lot of problems in this country and a lot of solutions. And how do we point people to the right direction, that here's how we solve our problems, and not always be in the, only the problem part, but the problem, and here's how we solve it. And so it's been an experience. So we're getting better.
You're doing a great job, man. Come on, it's great. I'm so glad you were able to come on with us, and it's fun to reflect on a lot of the wins and the things that we've done this past year. And I'm super excited about the 250th birthday, but also all the good work that we're going to do in the next year. So it's really exciting. It's fun to work alongside you at AFP. So appreciate you, man.
We just got, I think, for being here and representing AFP, I think we have to give a shout out to just our incredible entire team this year. I think everybody pulled together to get that transformational win of one big, beautiful bill. I'm so thankful for all the people that we work with, because they're true believers. They're trying to make this country a better place. And to each and every single engagement director and person who works out in our grassroots teams, who meets with people every single day over a cup of coffee, to knocking on the doors, making the phone calls. This organization does not work without the people who are out talking to voters, talking to real human beings, meeting with those businesses that you talked about earlier. And so I think that's one thing that is amazing about AFP, that will never change, that will always continue to grow. And so I think it's a good time to reflect on our awesomeness when it comes to organizing out in the States. It's a great thing that we do.
Yeah, it is gratifying every day to try to help knock down barriers or change things so that people can really achieve their American dream. I mean, at the end of the day, it really is, that'll get you out of bed every morning.
Yeah.
It's good. Kent, thanks so much, man. I hope you have a great holidays and a great new year.
You too. Thank you, David.
Thanks, man. Well, hey, folks, if you like this episode and like to stay connected with the podcast, be sure to like and subscribe to our channel and follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. And always remember, freedom and liberty are easily taken for granted. Don't take it for granted. Go out there and defend freedom and liberty. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you on the next episode.
Thank you for listening to American Potential. You may listen to more stories from Americans working every day to expand freedom and opportunity in their communities by visiting AmericanPotential.com.